This is ELH4X4 doing stuff. Today we're working on a 2012 Ford F350 Super Duty XLT two-wheel drive, which is important because we're doing front, upper, and lower ball joints. So come on along. All right, we got the vehicle supported by one of the I-beams and a jack stand underneath this control arm or whatever you want to call it. Our chief complaint is the upper control arm or upper U-joint, but we're going to change both upper and lower, and we got to remove tie rod, brake caliper, supporting bracket, speed sensor, and the rotor. Let's start off by hitting stuff down with some penetrating. All right, the caliper mounting bolts are 16 millimeter. I had broke them loose earlier. They weren't that loose. Try to put the brakes back in the same spot. You can see that it leaves marks from the caliper side or piston side of the caliper. Put the hardware back in, that way you don't lose it. That's a 21. Put the breaker bar on this side so I can push down, get better leverage. I mean, you could use an air tool and whatnot, but today we're using hand tools. 18 millimeter on the nut, 15 millimeter on the bolt head on the other side. This eccentric is slotted. All right, so we remember the slot. Where are you guys looking? There we are. This eccentric has a slot, and it is pointing towards the front. $8 millimeter on a mounting hardware for the speed sensor wire. Okay. Where you at? You see that? I think the tie rod is in the way. Right back in here is the speed sensor. And that looks like to be a 10 millimeter. We're going to have to be careful with that, to make sure not to break it off inside the steering knuckle. All right, so what you can do is just remove the wheel speed sensor and by breaking stuff, right? Which we're trying to prevent, but behind the wheel well is the speed sensor connector. All right, red clip. All right, stand by. All right, so red clip comes up. Depress the black clip and pull down. Well, there we go. That way you don't have to risk breaking the speed sensor off in the steering knuckle. So that's another option. So what I'll do is I'll just put the mounting hardware back into it. All right, so we put the mounting bolt inside the speed sensor, pulled the speed sensor wiring harness through onto the other side out of the way so we can break it later. Want to work on the tie rod end. $21. All right, let's give it a couple of light taps. Watch your ears. Okay. I don't have metric that big, but for standard, it's inch and 1/8 fits that pretty good. That wasn't bad at all. I was tapping up here and it's bringing that eccentric up a little. So that means that the upper's loose. So all we got to do now is get that lower loose. Just continue to pound on it to get it loose and it finally dropped down. All right, I'm going to go get another jack to support this hub because I left the rotor on. That way that's one less thing to take off, but let's get something underneath to support it. cool. Nothing supporting it right now. Well, it just seems like the only way that's really working is just the old-fashioned hitting it with a hammer. All right, let's try to get that one up. All right, this one seems to be working because it's a little bit smaller. Now's the time to dress up any boo-boos that you had. I'm going to hit mine up with a round file. You just got to find the right combination. Try to get it lined up as straight as possible without putting it in like I am, kind of cocked off to the side a little. Alright, the same thing, you just get the right combination together and make sure nothing's bottoming out. I felt that bottom out. That went pretty easy. Apply the snap ring. We'll save the Zerk fittings for last. We can remove that eccentric. There we go. See if I can show you what I'm looking at. This boot down here is seated good. The boot up here looks like it's seated pretty good. We got new hardware for up top. All right, believe it or not, instructions. Pinch bolt, 65 to 88 Newton meters and 48 to 65 foot-pounds. Tie rod end is 70 to 100 foot-pounds, and then a lower ball joint is 110 to 140 foot-pounds. And since we have a castellated nut, if we're kind of covering the hole, then we move it, tighten it down just a little bit more so we got access to the cotter pin hole. All right. All right, we'll go 60 since that's somewhat in the middle. $120. Bit more. Yeah, it took it to 130 to get the hole to line up. Don't forget the speed sensor wire. You gotta get that lined up on the other side. $10mm. All right, tie rod end was 70 to 100. We're going to go 80. All right, route it up. Behind the shock. Alright, we can get the Zerk fittings put in and get these things greased up. These ones are 8mm. And the upper is a 10. Alright, time to put the caliper bracket back on, and we'll reapply some blue thread locker. Alright. And we'll get the torque specs for that. All right, 166 on the bracket bolts and 56 for the caliper. All right, don't forget your brake pads. Look for the piston marks. $16mm. Now there's a flat spot that this sliding pin goes into, so make sure that's lined up properly. Don't forget to step on the brake. $165 on the lug torque. So we finished up the F350 Super Duty. So if you're thinking about doing ball joints, you might want to just do the upper and lower at the same time. As you can see, it was quite difficult to get to just the upper ball joint by itself. And yeah, instead of removing the speed sensor at the steering knuckle, we just disconnected it right at the harness connector at or behind the wheel well. So there's some things that we could do to kind of alleviate running into more problems. I decided to leave the rotor and the hub on. Did it make it easier? I don't know. It was pretty heavy, so that was one issue that I ran into, but I didn't have to worry about reassemble. So there you go. Upper ball joint and lower ball joint for 2012 Ford F350 Super Duty XLT two-wheel drive dually. Thank you for all the new subscribers. Leave a comment, leave a thumbs up, spread the word, share. And as always, thanks for watching. Have a great day.